Hi, second grade. Welcome to Writing Lesson 2. Yesterday, we learned that opinion writing is writing that helps us tell others what we think, feel, or believe about a topic. And we learned that it's important that we use reasons and evidence to tell people why we feel that way. Do you remember practicing doing this work about using Gru as our topic and whether or not Gru was a good fairy princess? I loved getting a chance to see all the reasons why some of you felt he was a good fairy princess and some of you felt like he was not a good fairy princess. I gathered all of those reasons and summarized them in a T-chart. And overall, here's what second graders had to say. Some of you said, yes, he would make a good fairy princess. And some of the reasons that I saw were that he has a pink dress and a wand, and apparently that makes him a good fairy princess. And a lot of you talked about the things that he did for his little girl. And I kind of summarized that by saying he loves his little girl, right? He was willing to dress up for her, and that makes him a good fairy princess, that he wanted to make her happy, and so that made him a good fairy princess. So I summarized that by saying he loves his little girl. But overwhelmingly, second graders did not think that Gru was a good fairy princess. Several of the reasons included things like he isn't really magical, he doesn't fit into the costume, he doesn't look like a fairy princess, he bonks a girl on the head with his wand. So lots of reasons that you gave. Now, if you disagree with that opinion, that's okay. But because we're making a class writing, I'm going to go with the greater opinion, the bigger opinion, that is no. And so that's what we're going to use for our class writing today. No, we do not think that Gru is a good fairy princess. But remember, even if that's not the opinion you chose, it's okay, because today we're just practicing to make one together as a class, and then from here on out, you get to write about your own opinion. So here's our goal for today. I can write an opinion piece by stating an opinion and using reasons to support my opinion. Let's get started. Yesterday, we had the chance to examine a couple of opinion writings and talk about the things that we saw the authors do that made for good, strong opinion writing. I took the things that you noticed and I made them into an anchor chart to help us out. Here are some of the things that you noticed good, strong opinion writers do. First, they start with a bold opinion. So they tell us right away what their opinion is about the topic. You noticed that strong opinion writing has reasons, things that prove or support the opinion. There are examples and details that back up the reason. So with the opinion writing about the cat where they said it was quiet, then there were some examples and some details about the cat being quiet. So not only are there reasons why, but then there's examples or ideas or more details to go along with it. And finally, we noticed that there was an ending that reminded you of the opinion. So all of these things tell us what makes for strong opinion writing. And we're going to use this to help us as we write our Gru opinion writing together as a class. All right, so let's use what we learned about strong opinion writing to write our class opinion about whether or not Gru is a good fairy princess. So just like our chart says, we need to start it with a bold opinion. So in our class's general opinion is Gru is not going to make a good fairy princess. So I'm going to say, in our opinion, Gru would make a terrible fairy princess. So I told them the topic, Gru being a fairy princess, and then I say our opinion, which is that he's terrible. So let me write that. In our opinion, comma, Gru would make a terrible fairy princess. So there's our bold opinion. Next, we need to add a reason. I can use the T-chart to help me with that. I'm going to look at our chart, and one of the reasons that was under the no part of our T-chart was that he isn't really magical. So that's going to be my first reason. So that's how I'm going to start that. My first reason is because he is not magical.
So now I have a reason, but I also learned that strong opinion writers add examples and details that back up their reason. So I need to give an example or a detail that prove that show he isn't magical. And I remember seeing in the video that he had to be let down with ropes because he couldn't fly, and that shows me he's not magical. So I'm going to use that as my example. In fact, that's how I'm going to say that. For example, he had to be let down with ropes instead of flying. So now I gave a reason. My first reason is because he's not magical. And I gave an example. For example, he had to be let down with ropes instead of flying. Now I can do another reason. Another reason is, and I'm going to look back at our T-chart, he didn't fit into the costume. That was a reason that we gave. So another reason is he did not fit into the costume. So now that I have the reason, I can add an example or a detail. And one detail about that was that he was too big for the costume. The costume was too small. So that's a detail that I could write to support my reason. The costume was too small. So do you see how we're using our chart to help us? We added a big, bold opinion. We wrote a reason, and then we gave an example or a detail. We wrote another reason, and we gave another detail or example. That's how we're going to write our class opinion writing, and I need your help to finish it up.
All right, writers, here's your job to wrap up our class writing. First, I want you to write one final reason why Gru would not be a good fairy princess. I want you to be sure to start your sentence with last or finally. You could use some sort of version of that like my last reason is or my final reason is, but you need something that's going to tell our readers that this is our last reason. You can use the reasons on our no chart, or you can use another reason that you came up with on your own. You're going to write that reason. And then I want you to add an example or a detail that backs up that reason. So give an example or a detail that proves that reason is true. Then I want you to write an ending sentence that reminds the reader of our opinion. Just like we saw in the sample writings, we always want to wrap up our opinion pieces by saying our opinion again to remind our readers of it. So on either your half sheet of paper or your index card or just a regular piece of paper if you don't have either of those, you're going to add a final reason, add an example or detail to go with that reason, and then write our opinion again in a way that wraps up our piece. Once you have that, I want you to come back to the Nearpod slide so that you can record what you wrote. That way I can listen to all of the second grade reasons and I can choose one to add to our class writing. Okay? Have fun!